What's going on, guys? Seth and Chevy here. We just watched episode 16 of season 1 of Delicious in Dungeon. We'll be going full spoilers ahead, so hopefully you've watched this episode. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place. And we're going to do a real quick recap. Now, there's a lot of little things that happen in this episode, but basically, Laios and crew are trying to leave the dungeon, trying to navigate the orc village. It's the orc village, right? No, not the orc village. It's a village. Yeah. Dungeon village. At one point they're going back on the road where all the things happen with the dragon, and Chilchuck's kind of freaking out about that, but then they notice everything's gone and everything's being repaired. A dragon flies overhead, so they shove themselves into a soft wall, because we find out about the dungeon cleaners, which are these little things that go around the dungeon cleaning up everything, something that Senshi has had issues with in the past in his tent. We got a little bit of a lore drop there. They come out of the soft wall. They end up navigating to the stairs to leave this part of the dungeon to get back to the surface. And as they start going up, they end up eating, and they run into Shuro and his group of ninjas, basically. And then also Kabru and his crew are there as well. We get a quick scene where they're all recognizing each other after a tense situation where, you know, the ninjas were sticking everyone up with their knives. And Kabru meets Laios, somebody he's been looking for, and in the moment they talk, realizes that there's no guilt in his face. So he either recognizes that there's some kind of misunderstanding, something happened to their treasure, something is not what they originally thought was the original situation. So he's just kind of, for the rest of the episode, there absorbing information. He really likes information, and it's kind of weird, but it also seems like he's just down for the adventure. So we find out Shuro is weak and he needs to be fed, so his group starts getting ready to prepare food for him, which involves everybody getting involved. Everyone splits up into 3 groups, and they start working on making food for him. Laios takes him and Kabru to a separate room to talk. One of the ninja people are there too to protect Shuro, I believe. And he basically gives him a rundown of all the things they've been doing in the dungeon up until what happened with Fallon, which is obviously of concern for Shuro. They end up having some people leave the room while they discuss things further. While that's happening, we get a scene with Senshi, and I don't know her name, but this person who's basically sworn to serve Shuro, and they kind of talk a bit while she prepares her Eastern food, as they called it, for Shuro. And when they come in to bring him the food, they find that Shuro is choking out Laios, finding out that they had used black magic to bring Fallon back, which is a big no-no. It's illegal, basically. I think that's what I got from that. And
that's the TLDR for sure.
Yeah, and it's not a good situation. He's not happy about it. And Laios is basically saying, like, that's pretty much all they could do. And then, was there anything else mentioned before the final scene worth bringing up in a recap? Okay, so the final scene, we see Fallon in like a monster form with bleeding eyes crawling around, which was kind of disturbing. And basically an episode of people meeting up, getting to know each other, and filling the other people in on what the situation is, which is perfect because they were going to the surface to get reinforcements. Now they've run into 2 other teams.
Reinforcements.
Yeah. So very interesting things happening in the show. What we think?
It was a pretty good episode, though definitely more of a in between episode. We got our reunion, which was needed. We're only missing the one party member who works for the gnome at this point.
True.
It was good to actually get some time with him too, because we only kind of got the introduction last episode, and now we have him, and it seems like in good terms outside of the disappointment of the black magic part, because like right when they were reuniting, he basically was like, "I'm sorry for leaving. I didn't know what to do." Blah blah, type of thing. So it's a little different than the other person who was just like.
When he was also surprised too that they went back in the dungeon so quickly.
Yeah.
So like, it sounds like he probably would have went with them too, but they just went in quick, like without him.
Yeah, because he had gone back home basically to get reinforcements. So the back and forth between the I'm just gonna call her the motherly figure of Shuro's group and Senshi, basically like bonding over the idea of like food and like how it affects outside of just like eating for the sake of eating. Relationships and bonding,
like the
and
love
like
and
that.
care.
Which was fun. And then like kind of getting more into, because ever since we actually got a full episode with the second party, essentially, learning that Kabaru was kind of full of information, and then now we kind of get an episode where he's like obsessed with obtaining information. So you can tell this is just kind of his bread and butter. Even though he's a competent fighter, as we've seen, a lot of that comes from just knowing. So he comes off as someone who'd be like a good strategist, in my opinion, just because it's all about the information and less about just the going in and using brute force or whatever. So it'd be interesting to see how this all evolves, because my assumption is this is the reinforcements, and we're going to start going deeper now instead of going back to the surface, unless they all decide to still go to the surface to maybe try to get even more people, which would be kind of crazy. But
there's already a lot.
It's a big party all of a sudden. Yeah, and even like to the point where Laios was like, "Hey, there's too many of us in one spot. Like, we're basically a giant beacon to monsters." But they took the three mages and they're like, "Hey, just put a barrier up," type thing. So I'd be curious to see, obviously, the dynamics. We got a lot of new characters to get to know. The show's been really good with characters too, so I'm sure they will all have interesting personalities by the time they get fleshed out a little better. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes, because the whole situation of the Fallon is actually pretty dark, and so I'm kind of wondering if the show is just going to start going keeping its comedic tone and stuff like that, but almost keeping like a more dark tone now as we head in deeper. So
I mean, the ending was pretty dark. It was creepy.
Yeah,
that she's like this monster.
Well, I just mean in general, like that theme just kind of going more and more as we dig deeper into the Mad Mage story. So
well, and it just added an extra layer too to what they did. It's not only that they saved Fallon and lost her again, but they also did this black magic thing that in the moment when we're watching, we're not thinking about that. We're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's what they're going to do, and they did it. But now it sounds like there could be consequences for that. So that's kind of an interesting layer that's been added on there. There's a questionable nature to what they did to bring her back. So which also adds another layer to Marcel and how she knows these like dark arts, basically.
Where was she studying it, since it's illegal? So
it's interesting. This episode was good. I liked it. It was a little straightforward in terms of like they basically made camp and met up with people, but I really like the potential of where things could go now that we've just introduced a bunch of new. I mean, these people have already been around, but like that they're now on the mainline story is really interesting. I'm really curious to see where that goes forward, because I think the show's like super clever in a lot of ways anyway when it comes to like the lore, the things they do with the food, and the team comp basically of our main group. But now we have a very what's the word I'm looking for? Just like, we have this Eastern group or whatever, very Japanese group, which I think is really interesting. I'm trying to think of the word they use in like D&D for stuff like that. Exotic? Yeah, like any weapons you use, they're like either Middle Eastern or like Japanese or anything like that.
Martial weapons.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's just, I'm thinking in like D&D terms, how it's interesting how we have like a whole group of people that basically are using things that aren't common in the region, I guess. They even at the one point with the foods called it Eastern food, which I thought was funny.
Well, it breaks away from the Western stereotype of the fantasy we're being given in the show. So,
especially because it's like a Japanese anime, so it's kind of fun for them to dabble in Western fantasy, but still bring an element of Japanese stuff to it, which I really like. But then also, Kaburu's group is different than the main group as well. And I still am like interested in what they're even going to have to do with this, because basically, from what we know of them, they've died twice, and they have had run-ins that they weren't really there for with our main group, and that's the only connective tissue they really have outside of they're trying to figure out what happened to their treasure. And now they're like, I don't think they took it.
It's also interesting when he had come to that conclusion, from just interacting with him, how one of the options he thought it could be was that the treasure was a trap, which was the case because it was the bugs or whatever. But they just didn't realize that because they're dead. So
they woke up as gone. They're like, what the hell? And then he meets Laios, and Laios isn't weird at all. So he's just like, you don't seem like somebody who did something to us, basically.
Makes you feel better. They made frozen treats out of it.
Yeah, true. It's also interesting, too. I don't know if I fully trust Kaburu, because he seems interesting, but at the same time, he, like, straight up, and it happened with the orcs, too, and the weird bar, but, like, he straight up just, like, murdered those dudes.
Well, he also mentions, too...
That guy.
But. The body makers, so they can sell them or whatever. When he's sitting there, like, basically talking to Laios at face value about like being interested in the food and stuff like that, and then he has the thought, he's like, wow, he's like serious about this. Like,
there's and I don't know if it's going to go that deep or not, but the show has twice now had something that happens early on and then later comes back up. So I think it's very interesting. This dude is like, not quite Littlefinger, but like he's got this information he already knows, and then he's siphoning more information, but also not being completely straightforward in how he's presenting himself to Laios. So it comes off almost sneaky, which from his perspective and his team's perspective, it kind of makes sense. You don't know these people.
Sure.
So if you're viewing it like, they're not some weird random group that showed up, you kind of understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, I'm curious to see what his ambitions are, because I don't know at this point. They're also in the dungeon looking for treasure, but like, what will they have to gain from even helping if they do? So
and he seems very like rule bound too, because like even with the interaction with the corpse group, he basically was like, I mean, you broke the law. Basically, I'm gonna just get rid of you because that's what you deserve.
Well, he also
and then with the black magic thing, he's like that. That's crazy. That's illegal. Like,
but he also seemed excited about that.
Well, I'm sure there's not a lot of information.
Yeah, because he had like his face looked like he was like, whoa, this is crazy. Basically,
when he was
but
like
he was acknowledging
about it. Too,
yeah,
so he was definitely excited.
Yeah, he was excited about it, but also he's recognizing that it's like a no-no. So like, it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. Yeah, because I don't even know really if he's like a good guy or not. Like a good guy, obviously they're all just random people, but like, I don't know if he's going to be a problem later or if he's just going to be hanging out. So I
have a feeling, just out of curiosity, that's going to be his driving factor to hang out. Is just because like Laios' group has only done crazy stuff in comparison to like what is considered the norm, and I'm sure he's just going to basically, forgive my terminology for this, but get off on it.
Yeah.
And so like
that's the only angle I can see so far is like the thrill of it, I guess, the adventure.
Yeah, just how bonkers it'll be to hang out with them. So, and then obviously we know the what's his name again? Shuro, yeah. Shuro's group. They're just gonna follow him, and he's in love with Fallon. So I mean, that's all he needs. So,
yeah, I get their motivation.
Yeah,
because he's an upper like class dude who has people who's following him, so they're just going to do his bidding basically, and his motivation is Fallon. So
yeah,
makes sense. But the other guys still wondering what's going to be that factor. But outside of that, I thought it was a fun episode. I thought it was fun to see these different groups and different people interacting. I want to see more of that moving forward, and it was cool to see the two different food parts of the episode, what we always expect from every episode, with Senshi making the edible bowls, which was weird. And Laios was so excited about it until he took a bite out of it. Even later, Shuro's like, I see you eating a brick earlier. But and then seeing the big preparation to make Shuro food, which is look just like Japanese food or something like that. So that was fun to watch as well. It's also neat to see
signal flare doing it.
Yeah, but to see Senshi and her talk about food too is kind of cool. So yeah, overall fun episode. Feels like setup though. Feels like it's building foundation for the next thing to happen, and so I'm really excited to see what that is and where it goes.
Oh, we didn't mention. I did remember something. We got more on Lio seeing the undead.
Oh yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he reached for the hole, he saw a ghost basically warn him about the dragon. I missed that part when I was talking about that part.
And so they knew the eyes basically of the mage were on the way. And it's curious because he's been since the first time it happened, he was kind of associating that with mana sickness because it was a bunch of new things happening at once for him. And then Marcel this episode was like, that's not a symptom of mana sickness. Like,
yeah. So and we speculated last episode that we were
blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super looking forward to seeing that flesh out because obviously we've heard about it and seen a little bit with Fallon, but like we've only really heard about it and seen a little bit with Fallon. And so if we can expand on that, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a cool little extra layer to his character. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's also going to make Laios a deeper character because like he's though he's definitely grown into a likable character.
Oh yeah, he's way better.
Sure.
Yeah.
He is still kind of one of the more shallow characters in comparison, though.
Sure.
At this point, I think all four of them are very interesting. So
yeah, I like all of them. I know if you go back in these reviews, it took us a while. Like the first 2-3 episodes, most of the characters were like, except for Senshi, he's like the Gojo of this show. Like you're gonna like him, but it took a while to start liking characters. But Laios, oddly enough, was one of the last ones that started clicking for me because I'm like, he's so simple.
Yeah,
he's such a simple character. He doesn't really have much going on for him, but. Without thinking back to that time, I haven't felt like that in a while.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
They've really done a good job on making him a likable character. But yeah, still, I think there's less to him than a lot of the other characters so far. And he's trying to get a sister. That was his motivation. And he likes to eat. And he knows random things. So, but we got more from him now, and now he's kind of growing and doing interesting things. So. Definitely is welcome and cool to see. So, yeah. Yep. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, let us know in the comments what you guys think of this episode. What did you like? What didn't you like? If there's something you didn't like about it, what were your major takeaways? Maybe there's something that happened in the episode we didn't discuss. And where do you think things are going from here? Unless you know, please don't tell us. No spoilers. We have not read the manga, and we would like to go in blind. Yeah, I think that's everything. Mm-hmm. We will be watching the last couple episodes of Heavenly Delusion. Mm-hmm. So if you have watched it in the past or plan on watching it or you're watching it now for some reason, we will be doing a season review of that. So stay tuned for that. And then we are going to dabble in Kaiju something.
Kaiju number 8.
Kaiju number 8 at some point soon. I would like to sample that. I also have plans to watch Sandland and... I am watching Fallout right now, but we'll see if I do a review of that. Let me know if you want me to. Got a lot of things coming up. Demon Slayer, of course, when that happens. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you're brand new. And yeah, that's going to be everything. I've been Seth. That's been Chevy. And until the next episode, we will talk to you guys later.